We are back on 94.7 FM, the Gospel Giant, and I am here with Miss Gwen Turner, and we are talking about domestic violence. Gwen, tell me why does the victim stay, and when they do leave, why do they go back?
A lot of times they stay because in their head, they know I need to go. This is not good. This is not good for me for a whole lot of reasons. But your heart will so many times overpower what you know to be right. We cannot always help who we fall in love with. So a lot of them stay because they are simply in love, or they feel like they're simply in love. Another reason why they stay is because if you've been in a domestic violence situation, there is a degree of fear that comes along with that cannot be described or verbalized unless you have walked in those shoes. So they stay out of fear. They stay because they have no education. And this person was the breadwinner. They stay because they have no babysitter. Because I've burned all my bridges with my family and my friends. Because, see, I left once before and I went back. So now everybody's mad at me. So now what do I do? So I have no other choice but to stay. A lot of times it's a comfort zone. Even though I know it's bad, I'm being beat, I'm being beat down mentally, emotionally, but I'm afraid to change.
That's a good point, because I've often said, habits are habits. Even if whether it's a bad habit or a good habit, a habit is what?
Absolutely.
Something that's ingrained.
Absolutely.
And that you do over and over. You live it and you breathe it.
Yeah, absolutely. So they stay for various reasons. They stay because they don't want the relationship to end. They just want the madness to stop. They want the violence to stop. They want the cussing and fighting to stop. But they still actually love that person. So most victims of domestic violence go through a period where I can change him, I can change her. With me, I was going to pray it away. I was going to fast it away. I was going to do all of those things. I was going to turn around 3 times. I was going to do all of those things. And it was going to happen, but it just did not happen that way. And you cannot change people. People have to change on their own. But you always feel like, well, if I do this more, I went through that period. If I look better, if I cook better, if I do this better, then they'll change. But it's not the case. So they stay for various reasons, and they go back for various reasons. They leave the relationship, and a lot of times the abuser may come back and say, oh, I promise I won't do it again, or blah, 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 blah. And they fall for that because they still have feelings, and they go back. And then it's okay for a while. And you keep in mind, domestic violence does not happen every day, every night. It does not happen the day you meet. It may not happen but once a year. But you never know when that day is going to come. So you're forever on eggshells, wondering, is this the day? Or am I going to make him mad today? Am I going to make her mad today? So they stay for various reasons. A lot of times it's about the children, because the abuser has not done anything to the children. It's just the person that he's attacking. So they don't want to separate the relationship with the mother or the father and the child. It's the 2 adults that have the problem. So a lot of times they will stay for that, thinking that, okay, as long as the children are here, then things will be okay. And usually that's not the case.
Yeah.
So, they stay for various reasons. Financial is a big reason. I have no money, I have no job, so I have to stay here. Who's going to help me out? There's 6 kids involved. Who's going to take me and 6 kids? And I'm not leaving my kids here, and he's not going to want to take care of the kids. So, and a lack of knowledge of resources. You have to get out there. There's some work that the victim has to put into getting out of the relationship. Is it easy? No. Usually it is not easy. You have to take it one day at a time, and some days you have to take that day 1 hour at a time. to make it work. It's hard, and you're afraid in the relationship, but a lot of times you're even more afraid out of the relationship. I had a client who once had been in a relationship over 50 years.
Wow.
And that was the only relationship she knew. And when he was finally arrested, I talked to her a week later, and she was crying profusely. And I thought the man had gotten out of jail or whatever the case, because he was really physically abusing her really bad. But her plea was, let him out of jail. I don't know how to live. I don't know how to function, because abuse was all she knew.
Wow.
So, and she couldn't, and of course they didn't let him out of jail, but it took a lot of counseling, and support groups and a lot of things to help get her on the right track. She was just used to being abused, and she didn't know any other life.
Yeah. So I've seen, many times or heard stories where the victim maybe files a protective order in court, and maybe even sometimes they can't get them for whatever reason. But so we've got the cases where they do file them, they get them, and then the abuser still,
violates
violates it. And then you have the other cases where the court doesn't provide it, and then something tragic has happened.
Absolutely. And that is common all over the United States.
Yeah.
Another thing that is very common about that is I may come and file an order of protection against my abuser, and then he'll call me and he'll make contact with me, which is a violation, and then I'll go and drop it. Or before the court date, and this is also something that happens all over the country, I'll sit down and I'll do the paperwork to file an order of protection, but my abuser may call me and threaten me. So I'm not going to show up for court because, first of all, I'm not even sure if the judge is going to grant it.
Right.
Because I don't know if my evidence is strong enough. I don't know. And being in a courtroom and in an order of protection hearing can be very intimidating and very overwhelming. And especially for someone who's already experiencing abuse, and you got all these people around, that can be very intimidating. And it can be a scary situation.
Yeah.
So, but it happens.
So why is it intimidating in the courtroom? Are there certain questions being asked? Is the abuser there? And
absolutely.
Okay.
The abuser is there. You get to face your abuser. And if you're gonna face someone you're already afraid of, and you're not sure that you're gonna really be protected, then you're thinking while you're trying to explain why you need this order of protection, you're thinking, oh my God, if I don't get it when I get outside this courtroom, he's gonna get me or she's gonna get me. So that's one reason why it can be very overwhelming and very intimidating. A lot of times, abusers really think that they haven't done anything wrong, and they will question the victim, saying, "What do you mean? I never did anything to you. I didn't do anything to hurt you." Because prior to that, one of the main lines abusers use, "You made me do this. You made me do this to you. I wouldn't, if you didn't make me mad, I wouldn't give you a black eye. If you didn't make me mad, I wouldn't do these things." So depending on the relationship and what degree of fear the victim is experiencing, it can be intimidating because you're just not sure of what the outcome is going to be. And then a lot of times abusers will hire attorneys. Well, I'm a victim. I can't afford to get an attorney. It was all I could do to get here.
Yes.
So, and that can be, very intimidating, and things can get misconstrued, and then here I am again.
And the
so
victim
now
can just feel like there is no hope.
There is no hope. I've fallen through the cracks.
So we're going to revisit this in a little bit, but how can someone that is a victim of domestic violence get help?
The first thing you need to do is, whatever city, whatever state you're living in, every state has a domestic violence hotline. If not, there is a domestic violence hotline number. and I'm sure you will give that number out.
Mm-hmm.
See what the closest resources are to you.
Mm-hmm.
When I was experiencing domestic violence, there were not nearly as many agencies and resources as there are. If you're trying to even leave the state that you're living in,
Mm-hmm.
and you figure you want to go to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
then start investigating domestic violence transfers. Meaning, I'm gonna call and say, hey, I'm fleeing a domestic violence relationship. I need to come to wherever, and I need to know what do I need to get into one of the shelters temporarily until I can get on my feet.
Mm-hmm.
But I would always start with the national hotline and have them connect you to the closest place that there is. If you're familiar with an attorney, one-on-one, not necessarily an attorney that you hired, let them know, look, I'm in a domestic violence situation. What are the local resources here? What is the first step that I can make? There's, in almost every state, there is a family justice center.
Okay.
The name may not be Family Justice Center, but we're all connected in one way or the other with the justice system. And that's what they major in, domestic violence.
So how many cases would you say you deal with on a weekly basis, monthly basis?
I work for Shelby County. So in the courtroom, we probably average between Monday through Thursday, we do an average of 30 to 40 cases a day.
Wow.
And those are just orders of protection.
Mm-hmm.
You speaking of orders of protection, restraining orders, that does not include criminal cases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes that will overlap because there may be a criminal case as well as a civil case going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the last I checked, and that's just for this area of the country, FSC and the domestic violence unit was getting like 250 to 300 calls a month of people actually coming in the door, filing, doing police reports, doing it. So there is an epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
There is an epidemic.
We're gonna get that number for when we come back.
Absolutely.
And I will just probably try to give out the national
Number.
hotline number. And we'll be back in a moment. We are still here on the Gospel Giant, and we are discussing domestic violence with Miss Gwen Turner. And we will be right back in a moment on 94.7 FM.